pleased to make this interview with Mary Weidner, the author of Interact program. She works at Edinboro University in Pennsylvania, USA. In addition, she took part in a film projection. The title of the film is Stuttering, Part of Me. Mary Weidner presents her research at conferences. The main topic of her interest is stuttering, changing attitudes towards stuttering, and developing positive attitudes. Good morning, Mary. Thank you very much that we can talk today.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here with you. Thank you.
The first question for you is about educating children and adults about stuttering. So, is educating children and adults about stuttering the same, or should the speech therapist focus on different aspects depending on the target group?
That's a really, really great question and a very important question. The principles of attitude change are going to be very similar for both children and adults, but the how we educate them is going to be different. So when I talk about the principles of attitude change, things like improving knowledge about the condition, improving knowledge about people with the condition, improving skills to respond in a sensitive way are all of the principles that attitude change would have in common with children and with adults. How we do that is going to depend on their age. Development really comes into play here. So when I'm talking about attitude change for preschool children, doing activities, using puppetry, doing discussion pages and activity books would be a lot more appropriate of an approach than compared to adults. Adults might like something that's a little bit more mature, conversation, videos featuring somebody who stutters, maybe working or meeting a person who stutters and so forth. So while the principles are very similar, the how we do that is going to be different between the two groups.
Thank you very much for your answer. It is really interesting. My next question is connected with education again. What should every school teacher know about stuttering?
That is a really, really good question. And I want to preface it by, in the general education here in the United States, a lot of teachers don't get the education about various communication disorders, including stuttering. So there's still a big misconception among helping professionals, including teachers, that stuttering is psychological or it's caused by nerves or anxiety. So in the classroom, that can lead to practices that aren't very helpful. You know, oftentimes teachers will sign children out of having to give a presentation or kind of enable avoidance. So to your question, teachers really need to be powered with education. So understanding that stuttering is not caused by nerves or anxiety, but that certain situations can increase the stuttering when giving presentations, when being called on in class, and so on. Teachers can also be empowered by learning helpful strategies for classroom management for children who stutter. One thing, you know, that we really encourage teachers to do is to treat that child with the same speaking expectations. If they have to give a presentation, we want that child to be able to give that presentation. Now, maybe that would involve supporting that child or preparing that child differently, but we don't want to send the message to children, because you stutter, that means you can't give a presentation, because they can, right? We need to help children understand that their stuttering shouldn't limit them in any way, including their academic expectations, because really what that's doing is it's just perpetuating this idea that children who stutter are less intelligent, and we know that's not the case. So through education and by empowering teachers with helpful strategies for classroom management, really, really important, starting at a very early age.
Thank you for this helpful information. I believe that many teachers use your advice. And now I want to ask you how to effectively change attitudes towards stuttering among children and parents.
Oh, great question. I could talk a very long time about this one. I'll expand a little bit on the principles that I talked about previously, but I'll also talk about the Interact program a little bit and what we do clinically when we're working with parents of children who stutter. So like I mentioned before, attitude change really is driven by improving knowledge about the condition, improving knowledge about people with the condition, improving people's skills to respond in a helpful way. We recently did a study with Dr. Wałęsa included, where we examined what are helpful listener supports for children who stutter. Largely, in Poland, in the United States, and in Slovakia, we discovered that really it boils down to children want to be treated, like anybody else. Patience, not saying slow down, not laughing at them. It's really, really an important listener skill. So we want to help parents and other children develop some of those skills. The Interact program was developed for young children, still again, relying on those principles of attitude change, but using puppetry. So using something that's really motivating and exciting, bright, fun, age appropriate. So what we did was we did 2 lessons, both here in the United States and in Poland. And we measured children's attitudes before and after the attitude change program. And we empowered children with the knowledge and with skills to hopefully improve their outward reactions when working or communicating with people who stutter. We found that to be very impactful and have very, very positive outcomes for young non-stuttering children. When we're thinking about interacting with parents, oftentimes parents come to us as clinicians scared, guilty, fearful, worried about the future for their child. Time and time again, we see parents come in with children that are 10, 11 years old, whose stuttering is probably not going to go away. And parents say, he's been in therapy for 5, 6, 7 years, and he's still stuttering. What are we doing wrong? Oftentimes it takes those 5, 6, 7 years to say, you're not doing anything wrong, but stuttering for many people is a chronic condition. So really understanding their experiences, opening up your heart to understand what they've gone through emotionally is so important, because the stories they have to tell are such a huge part of the future of productive therapy. So how do we have those conversations with parents? We have to have them in love and kindness, and we have to have transparency and honesty. If a parent comes to me and says, my child is still stuttering, we're waiting for it to go away, I know that there's a lot of education that needs to be done about what we know about stuttering. Okay, we know stuttering is a chronic condition that's neurologically based, genetic roots, right? Many parents don't have that basic information. So when they understand what we currently know about the etiology of stuttering, that can really demystify or provide them with good information about the condition. So then we can make meaningful goals for that client. Now, when I'm working with parents of children who are school age, I incorporate parents and I incorporate the school age children into writing those goals. So what's most meaningful for you? When you come to speech therapy, what do you want to achieve? It might not be getting rid of the stuttering. That's not a realistic goal for most school-age children and adults. But what we can do is to help improve your reactions, to help not let stuttering limit you in any way in your future goals. You know, we want to see a child participating, engaging with their peers, and not let stuttering hold them back in any way. So when we have those conversations with parents, when we have those conversations with children, we can start to shift their attitude towards therapy itself. Because a lot of times they've been very disappointed in the therapy that they've received.
Thank you very much for your answer. It is really important what you said. Now I'm curious. Why did you become interested in attitudes towards stuttering, and where did the idea of implementing the Interact program come from?
You know, life is full of surprises and can really make you, I would just say, surprised. I had no intention of being interested in stuttering at all. When I was in grad school, stuttering was on the bottom of my list. I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I didn't feel confident in it. I didn't really want to work with children who stutter. And life has a way of, again, surprising you and offering opportunities. And I worked clinically, my first job at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. And when I was working there, my supervisor, Craig Coleman, was an expert in stuttering. He ran our stuttering clinic at the hospital. And I had the opportunity to observe some of the work that he did with children who stutter. And I still didn't like it very much, even as a new clinician. It was still really scary to me. But then Craig took a different position, and I inherited a lot of the children on his caseload. At that time, and I was probably 3 years into my first clinical job, I really started to understand that stuttering isn't just about a child coming in and getting fixed. It's not about, you come in and you start at point A and you end at point B, and then the child is discharged from therapy and you never see them again. Stuttering is messy. Stuttering is layered. Stuttering does not go in a straight line. It goes like this, right? Which makes therapy so important, because I feel like stuttering, compared to articulation or language or some other speech conditions, that there's a really big ripple effect, meaning it not only affects the child, but it affects the family and the peers and the teachers and that child's whole communication community. It's when I realized at that point that stuttering affects the communication community that I became really passionate about working with children who stutter and improving their attitudes. I worked for about 4.5 years clinically, and I was kind of thinking about where I wanted my career to go. I was exploring various options and came across the work of Dr. Ken St. Louis in public attitudes among adults. And I read a lot of his papers, researched the great work that he had done, and sent him an email. And it was as simple as that. It was doing a little bit of Googling, reading a little bit, sending an email. That email turned into a face-to-face meeting, turned into an application to get my PhD, turned into completing that program. and opened up a world of opportunity just because I was kind of curious about something. And I encourage all of you, if you ever have that curiosity, explore it, run with it. You never know where that question is going to lead. When I talked to Ken for the first time, I said, you have incredible work among adults. I like the child population. I want to extend your work to children. I had previously, I have a background in the theater arts and kind of that creative piece. I've always loved Sesame Street and puppetry. And I thought, why not? Why not combine these two worlds? And I think, again, that's a message that I would like to send for new clinicians, is that if you have a passion for speech language pathology, if you have a passion in any other field, if it's the theater arts, if it's sports, if it is any sort of hobby that brings you passion, try to figure out a way to combine those two. Because I think at the end of the day, when we combine our passions, it really leads to a very fulfilling career and a joyful life. So I'm really thankful for kind of acknowledging those questions that I had and just taking the initial steps to ultimately find a place in a career that I'm really passionate about.
Great thing. Thank you for your answer. My last question is the main question of this interview. How to become an effective speech therapist? What tips do you have for young speech therapists?
Great question. And I think I hit on a couple of them during some of these other questions. Number one, be curious. Ask a lot of questions, I still ask more questions than I give answers, okay? When we have questions, it's gonna open up a world of opportunity. Acknowledge that you don't know, okay? That's okay. The secret is that most of us don't know a lot of stuff, okay? But we have the skills to ask the right questions, the relationship to have other people help us find the answer. And we know that we have resources to help us follow those questions, okay? So don't feel like you need to know everything. Nobody does, okay? Be passionate, be excited. Don't be afraid to let yourself surprise you. You might start your clinical career saying, I hate working with children, I hate working with adults, I don't want to do stuttering, I don't want to do X, Y, Z. Let yourself open to possibility and see where life takes you. It's a wonderful journey. Just follow your passion and be good, ethical, passionate clinicians, and you'll change the world. You'll change the lives of so many people.
Thank you so much. Dear Mary, I'm really impressed with everything I heard today. It is really valuable experience for me. Thank you very much for this interview, advice, and everything I heard today. And of course, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Paulina. Congratulations to you and your peers and all of the work that you all are doing.
Thank you very much.